data link protocols. And the first one I'm going to talk about will be point-to-point protocol. And point-to-point protocol is used to send data packets back and forth over links, or in other words, like nodes back and forth. So if you need data to be sent back and forth, it's point-to-point usually that's allowing you to do it. Point-to-point allows for the connection, authentication, and compression of data. For the first question, what does PPP stand for?
Point-to-point protocol.
Point-to-point protocol.
Correct. Okay, so this is actually an example of point-to-point protocol and how it actually works. Whenever you first start off, you're originally dead. And so what you want to do first is you want to establish a connection with another node that you want to connect to. And if you actually fail to connect to the next node, you're still dead, so you loop right back to where you were. But if you do actually establish a connection with the other one, then you need to authenticate your connection. If you fail on the authentication part, you actually go straight to terminate, which kills the connection, and then you go back to being dead. But if you are able to authenticate the connection, then you go to network. And this is where you're actually going to configure the connection between the two nodes. And then after you configure, you go on to open. And open is actually where you're sending the data back and forth. And this continues on until it decides that it no longer needs to send this data, so it's going to terminate. Once it terminates, it knows the next step is to go back to being dead, which is its original state, so it's ready to send data again if it needs to. So which of the following happens after the authentication step fails?
It terminates.
That is correct.
Anybody want a donut? Donut. No one wants a donut.
How many are left?
Wow. Okay.
So the next thing we'll talk about is sending packets over the SONET. And basically what you're going to do is you're sending this data back and forth, and it's going to be in a fixed data type. It's going to be recurring, no matter if there's a new information or not. So it's just going to keep sending until it's told to stop, basically. And then there is one unusual feature in point-to-point protocol, which is the payload that's actually being sent is scrambled each time. And this is done basically so that you don't just keep sending nothing but zeros. So if it's scrambled, you don't get some of those errors that come up. Point-to-point protocol actually runs on most IP routers. Here's an example of kind of the stack of how that works. With the IP on the top, which goes to the point-to-point, which then eventually transfers down to the SONET, which will then transfer over to the next one. And it's basically a framing mechanism that helps distinguish between the occasional packets that are continually sent and the other ones that are new data basically getting sent. Next question. Point-to-point protocol runs on IP routers, true or false?
True.
So anybody want a donut?
Okay.
Very good question, don't worry.
This is ADSL, or asymmetric digital subscriber loop, as it was described